Good afternoon. This is the time and place for a workshop before the board for possible action regarding proposed amendments to Nevada Gaming Commission Regulations 3, 4, 5, 6, and 14 regarding, without limitation, gaming devices, associated equipment, inter-casino link systems, operators of inter-casino link systems, mobile gaming systems, new game approval, and revocation of gaming device and associated equipment approvals. Madam Secretary, has this workshop been properly noticed in accordance with the open meeting law? Dag McKellar, has this
Yes, it
workshop
has.
been proper? Thank you. All right, let's open it up to the public for comment. Is there anyone up north?
There is not.
Okay. Anyone here in the south for public comment? There appears to be no one. Um, So let's move on. The purpose of this workshop is to address proposed changes to Nevada Gaming Regulations 3, 4, 5, 6, and 14 that are based on AB 7 of the 2021 session. To provide general context for the discussion and the record, AB 7 revised the definition of associated equipment to include inter-casino link system subjects, remove references to inter-casino link systems, to deem a new game approved if the commission does not take action within 60 days of board recommendation, and various division requested changes, such as revocation of approval of gaming devices and associated equipment. Dag McKellar, can you please give us background and an explanation of these changes?
Thank you, Member Watkins. Good afternoon, Chair Gibson, Member Watkins, Member Katsaros. For the record, I am John McKellar with the Attorney General's Office. The purpose of this workshop today is to consider the proposed changes to Regulations 3, 4, 5, 6, and 14. If the proposed changes appear ready, you may also recommend them to the Commission for adoption. The draft dates for all of the proposed changes before you today are February 3rd, 2022. The bulk of the proposed changes are related to the passage of AB 7 during the last legislative session and the changes AB 7 made related to inter-casino link systems. There are also various requests from several divisions of the board and a few other changes made necessary by statute contained within the proposed changes. I will go through each of these changes with you today. Please stop me at any time during my presentation with any questions or comments you may have about the proposed changes. Turning to Regulation 3, specifically 3.070, the changes to Regulation 3.070 reflect the statutory change that an operator of an inter-casino link system is now approved pursuant to regulation rather than licensed. Turning to Regulation 4.030, the changes to this section clarified that a non-restricted license refers to gaming licensees and reflects the statutory change that operators of inter-casino linked systems are no longer considered gaming licensees. Turning to Regulation 5, Section 112. The changes here reflect the statutory change that an operator of an inter-casino linked system is now approved pursuant to regulation rather than licensed. Section 5.180 also reflects the statutory change that an operator of an inter-casino linked system is now approved pursuant to regulation rather than licensed. Additionally, 5.180 contains the updated statutory approval method for new games, modifies the installation limitations and record-keeping requirements for inter-casino linked systems, and deletes statutory cross-references which are no longer in effect. Turning to Regulation 6.010, The changes to this section reflect statutory change that an operator of an inter-casino linked system is now approved pursuant to regulation rather than licensed. Section 110 deletes a cross-reference to a statute which is no longer in effect. Section 150 reflects statutory change that an operator of an inter-casino linked system is now approved pursuant to regulation rather than licensed. I turn now to Regulation 14 and the bulk of the proposed changes before you today. Section 14.010, subsection 20, deletes the modification definition specific to inter-casino linked systems. With the move of inter-casino linked systems to associated equipment, these modifications are covered as associated equipment modifications. 14.010, new subsection 24, reflects the statutory classification of mobile gaming systems as gaming devices from 2019's SB 73. 14.010, old subsection 26, is deleted because mobile gaming systems are now considered gaming devices and subject to rules regarding gaming device modifications. 14.010, new subsection 25. The additional language reflects that modifications can also be of associated equipment. New subsection 26 is a clarification requested by the Technology Division, as this term is regulatory, not statutory. New subsection 27 reflects the statutory change that an operator of an inter-casino linked system is now approved pursuant to regulation rather than licensed. 14.020 reflects the statutory change that an operator of an inter-casino linked system is now approved pursuant to regulation rather than licensed. Section 14.025 is a new section which reflects AB7's requirement that the Commission adopt regulations governing the approval of operators of inter-casino linked systems. I would note that this section will be renumbered as I inadvertently numbered it the same as an existing section in Regulation 14. Subsection 1 sets out that a person licensed as a manufacturer, as a non-restricted gaming licensee, or who holds an active license as an operator of an inter-casino linked system may be approved to operate an inter-casino linked system. Subsection 2 grandfathers persons holding an active license as an operator of an inter-casino linked system into the new approval process. Subsection 3 sets out the process to obtain approval as an operator of an inter-casino linked system, and that adverse decisions for approval may be reviewed as other administrative approval decisions pursuant to Regulation 4. Subsection 4 is the standard declaration that there is no right to granting a request for approval. Subsection 5 reflects the deletion of NRS 463.245, subsection 5 by AB7. NRS 463.245, subsection 5, authorized operators of inter-casino linked systems to share in gaming revenue. This subsection also reflects that manufacturers and operators of slot machine routes remain authorized to share in revenue. This section does not deal with discipline of an approved operator of an inter-casino linked system, as this section requires all approvals be tied to an underlying license. If there are any issues, discipline may be sought against that underlying license. 14.030 reflects the statutory change to gaming device approvals and approvals of operators of inter-casino linked systems. Language pertaining to preliminary determinations is also revised to make it more readable. Section 14.040, subsections 9 and 10 are waivers and are deleted from this regulation. Waivers may still be contained in the technical standards and are also allowed in new subsection 14.050, subsection 8. Turning to 14.050, It deletes online slot metering systems as contained within associated equipment and creates waiver provision to replace the waiver provisions in 14.040. 14.060. And the modifications to this list mirror the list contained in NRS 463.670 as amended by AB7. 14.080. References to inter-casino linked systems and operators are deleted as inter-casino linked systems are now classified as associated equipment, and those field trials are covered by 14.280. 14.100. References to inter-casino linked systems and related multi-jurisdictional progressive prize systems are deleted as inter-casino linked systems are now classified as associated equipment. Approval of associated equipment is governed by Section 14.260. The provisions related to multi-jurisdictional progressive prize systems and inter-casino linked systems of games of skill or hybrid games are moved to 14.260. Sections 14.110, 120, 130, and 140 as inter-casino linked systems are now considered associated equipment. Modifications thereto are now covered by 14.300. 14.220 is the changes there are requested by the technology division of the board. This section is authorized by NRS 463.305 and clarified to reflect that an initial revocation of a gaming device approval is by the chair or designee. A review process is added to this section in line with the statutory discipline process. We did receive one comment from BMM Test Labs. BMM wanted independent test labs to receive immediate notice of revocation in addition to the manufacturer. I discussed BMM's comments with Chief Barbie of the Technology Division. He thought that this is good information for an independent test lab to have. However, notice can be done procedurally, and it is not necessary for independent test lab notice to be in the regulation. Also, in discussing this issue with Chief Barbie, Chief Barbie thought that subsection 7 of 14.220 as proposed should be changed from shall to may, so that it would read, the chair may publish a list on the board's website, which includes all gaming devices for which the chair has revoked approval. And then this list shall be updated not less often than once per week. The reason for this request, and Chief Barbie is here, so he may correct me if I'm wrong, is it's something he aspires to do, but it may take a little behind the scenes programming and setting up of processes to make sure it happens. So he aspires to do it, but he doesn't want to be mandated to do it just in case he can't do it as soon as the regulation is adopted.
If you don't mind, quickly, I'll turn to Chief Barbie to give us an explanation of the two thoughts that you just provided.
Good afternoon, Jim Barbie with the Technology Division. The first comment I had was regarding BMM's request to add language to require them be notified, or a test lab be notified at the same time the manufacturer is notified. I do agree that this is information that they should be aware of. However, I don't believe it fits within the context of that regulatory requirement. This particular regulation in which we notify the manufacturer's intent is to have that manufacturer become immediately aware of the problem software and remove it from distribution and notify their customer base that it's no longer approved. I believe that a more suitable method would be for us to provide this disapproval information to the test labs through our periodic meetings. We meet with them as often as biweekly. And what we could do and include this as an ongoing agenda item and review with them those products that have been disapproved for the period between that meeting and our last. So I believe it would fit better as a procedural vehicle as opposed to a regulatory requirement. The second comment had to do with the shall versus may. As Dag McGaw pointed out, there will be some labor required to implement this. We would want to make sure we get it right, and I'm not certain we would be able to do that prior to this reg's adoption. Now, an alternate would be to add an effective date, leave the language as shall. However, that may, I think, clutter the regulation a little bit if we debated and then added an effective date. So my recommendation was we move it to shall, and that, yes, this is something we plan on implementing in the future.
Okay, thank you for that.
Turning to 14.230, subsection 1. This reflects the statutory change to new game approvals, updates the documentation required on an application for a new game approval, and allows for waiver of chair approval for game variations related to bingo. 14.260. The changes to this section incorporate all of the items removed from 14.100, 110, 120, 130, and 140 as a result of inter-casino link systems being classified as associated equipment. 14.300 adds more detail to the process of approval of a modification of associated equipment, and also adds a process for a temporary summary approval and an emergency. 14.301 is a new section explicitly authorizing revocation of approval of associated equipment for certain reasons. As original approval of associated equipment is by chair decision, the review process for this revocation is through the administrative approval decision process found in Regulation 4.185, 190, and 195. BMM Test Labs commented that it would like ITLs to receive immediate notification of revocation like manufacturers in this section as for gaming device revocation. And Chief Barbie's same comments apply here as to 14.220, that it's important information for an independent test lab to have. However, it's best done procedurally. I would also note that we may want to add something similar to subsection 7 from 14.220 with the change of shall to may, so that notice is given in list form for revocations of associated equipment as gaming devices.
Which section is that you're recommending?
So add something similar in 14.301 to the current proposal in 14.220 subsection 7. And that states that the chair, we change shall to may, the chair may publish a list on the board's website which includes all gaming devices for which the chair has revoked approval. This list shall be updated not less often than once per week.
Okay. All right.
Turning to 14.350, 360, 370, 390, 395, and 420. All the changes to these sections are changes to the regulations pertaining to independent testing laboratories based on the statutory changes related to the classification of mobile gaming systems as gaming devices and inter-casino link systems as associated equipment. These changes should be effective upon adoption and approval by the Commission. This workshop was scheduled to solicit comments. However, if the regulations appear ready for recommendation after receipt of any comments, such recommendation is properly noticed on the agenda today, and you may recommend the proposed regulation to the Commission for adoption. I am happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Is it correct that many of these changes are statutory, clarifying, or simply technical? Is that correct?
The bulk of them are derived from the AB7 reclassification of intercasino link systems to associated equipment. From 2019's, I believe it was SB 73, classification of mobile gaming systems as gaming devices, and then the statutory requirements for the change in the approval process of new games. And there are, of course, as mentioned, a few other miscellaneous items in there.
Okay, thank you. Well, at this time, I'll open it up to my colleagues for questions or comments.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opening there, Senior Doug, McKellar. I appreciate that. I just had two additional points. I think you covered everything out of my list already. Under 14025 sub 3C, I think we're mirroring language there we utilize elsewhere with respect to uh, 253C. I think here it says a person whose request for approval has been rejected by the chair, they cannot submit another request for approval of an actual system for a year. I think that's probably most appropriate for dealing with the actual licensure or registration of the individual. But I think in this regard, we probably don't need to mirror that language. I would suggest just striking 3C there so that they could still submit a new casino link system if they got rejected for another one. I don't think a year wait cooling off period is necessary there.
And that makes a sense in discussing it with you earlier. I pulled that, I kind of mirrored the gaming employee objection cooling off period there. But here, since there's an underlying license, I would agree that this is not necessary.
And then just something came to my mind when you were mentioning the tweak under 14.220 sub 7. I agree with the suggestion that we would change that from shall to may. So the chair may publish a list on the board's website. We probably don't need that second sentence since we're going to be putting may in that first sentence there. We probably don't need to prescribe an actual time period under which that list would need to be updated if we may not even be doing it anyway. Perhaps save that for another time. Other than that, I didn't have any other questions. I appreciate all the work on this one. There's quite a bit of changes here, but I know they, as you mentioned, most of them have been driven by AB7 that was approved already, and so they're not necessarily earth-shattering. So thank you very much for.
Thank you, Member Katsaros. Dag McKellar, do you have thoughts in response to Member Katsaros' most recent proposal?
I think it makes a certain amount of sense. If we're changing shall to may, it doesn't make sense to say that it shall be updated not less often than once per week if it's already permissive. I agree, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have mandatory updates to a permissive list.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also agree with what you said before. I think it was as to 14.301, the proposal to add the similar language that's reflected in 14.220 section 7 to reflect the shall versus may regarding the board publishing the list on the website. And as it relates to Chief Barbie's comments, I also agree that it's more appropriate to handle the matter addressed by the test lab as an administrative matter rather than through the regulation. I guess, are there any other questions from my colleagues or comments?
Superintendent Gibson, for the record, I would just note that I agree with the recommendations to change shall to may in 14-227, 14-301 to, and then the change to 14-025. Just striking that provision.
And also deleting the second sentence to,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
Yep.
So you've noted those provisions?
I have, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions, Member Katsaros?
No, I didn't have any.
All right, thank you, Dag McKellar. We'll move to comments from any interested parties. Are there any interested parties in the north?
No, there aren't.
Okay, any interested parties in the south? All right. Well, any other deliberation by the board? Any other comments or, okay? Would either of you like to make a motion?
Certainly, I can make a motion. I move that the board submit to the Nevada Gaming Commission for their consideration and adoption the proposed amendments to regulations 3, 4, 5, 6, and 14 that are before us. I think drafts all dated February 2nd, February 3rd, 2022, taking into account the changes as we've discussed on the record, and further by Senior Dag McKellar here, along with the recommendation that any such adoption be made effective upon Nevada Gaming Commission approval.
Okay, Executive Secretary Bell?
Member Katsaros,
Aye.
Member Watkins,
Aye.
Chair Gibson,
Aye.
All right, with that, we will go back to public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
there is no one here in the north.
Okay, any comment here in the south? All right, seeing none, this will conclude the workshop. Thank you all for attending. All right, let's take a 5-minute break before our special meeting.
Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, February 24th, and this is the time and place for the special meeting of the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Given the fact that Member Watkins has been the primary member of the board who's shepherded this ETAC with Michael Morton, I'm going to turn it over to her to run the meeting.
Thank you, Chair Gibson. Madam Secretary, has our agenda been posted in accordance with open meeting law?
Yes, it has.
Okay, Madam Secretary, let's proceed with public comments.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on game-related matters.
Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please step forward to the podium in the north or in the south.
There is no one in the north.
Okay, seeing none in the south, that will close our public comment section. Madam Secretary, I believe that brings us to our special agenda item. Can you please read that item into the record?
This item is the consideration of appointments to the Esports Technical Advisory Committee as noted on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can we have Mr. Michael Morton please step to the podium, provide us with some explanation of this item? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Gibson, Member Katsaros, Member Watkins. For the record, Michael Morton, Senior Policy Counsel for the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Before you this afternoon is an item for deliberation regarding additional appointments to the Esports Technical Advisory Committee. Senate Bill number 165 of the 81st session of the Nevada Legislature created the Esports Technical Advisory Committee. The legislation requires that the Gaming Control Board appoint individuals from certain sectors of the esports industry to this new committee. The statutory charge of the committee is to formulate and provide recommendations to the board on any guidelines and parameters that may be necessary to ensure the integrity of esports when wagers are placed on such competitions. Since the board made its initial appointments to the committee on November 3rd, 2021, various experts and stakeholders in the esports industry have voiced the importance of ensuring that a diverse set of opinions, specifically from the game publishers, is present on the committee. After consultation with these stakeholders, I do recommend the appointment of Che Chow to the Esports Technical Advisory Committee. Che Chow is a 25-year veteran of the video game industry with over a decade of experience in esports. Mr. Chow is currently the Senior Director of Esports for Ubisoft, where he manages esports strategy and development for current and upcoming Ubisoft game titles, including Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. Mr. Chow is passionate about the intersection of esports and gaming and has a deep understanding of esports strategies, ecosystems, and community building. Mr. Chow began his career as a games journalist in 1999, writing and editing for publications such as GameSpot, Electronic Games Monthly, and OneUp.com. His experience in esports also includes prior roles as the director of esports and communities at Microsoft and as global franchise lead for Hearthstone Esports at Blizzard Entertainment. Before you is a revised order of appointment for the Esports Technical Advisory Committee. The only substantive change from the original order signed on November 3rd, 2021 is the addition of Mr. Chow as a member of the committee. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have on this item.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Mr. Morton. It seems to me that Mr. Chow is extremely qualified to serve on the ETAC committee, and I've seen his background, and it's impressive in the esports arena. And also given the expression of the industry of the importance of having diverse representatives from the publisher world, I think it's important as well to have this additional appointment. Are there any comments from my colleagues or questions?
I just want to say, Mr. Morton, thank you for your work on this. You've done an outstanding job, and I appreciate the service for those who have volunteered to be on this committee. So thank you.
I'll echo that as well. And it sounds like your suggestion here for the appointment of Mr. Chow would be a great addition to the. So thank you for.
Yes, and I'll echo the chair's comments as well. Thank you to all of the ETAC committee members who have committed to being a part of this. I think it's an important step in Nevada for esports. And we have our first meeting coming up on March 4th, on March 1st, I'm sorry. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Anything else from you, Mr. Morton?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Would any of my colleagues like to make a motion?
Sir, I can do so if you wish. I move to approve the revised order before us appointing Chi Chow as the 8th member of the Esports Technical Advisory Committee.
Executive Secretary Bell?
Member Katsouris,
Aye.
Member Watkins,
Aye.
Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, with that, we will open it back up to the public comment section.
this
Is
item
there
placed on the
any,
agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming related matters.
is there anyone wishing to make a comment in the north?
There is not.
Okay. Anyone wishing to make a comment in the south? All right, seeing none, that will close our public comment section. And this concludes the special meeting of the Nevada Gaming Control Board. We are adjourned.